Whenever you're ready, brother.
What's up, blessed people?
Oh, what you just said, Drew?
What's up, my blessed people?
I was about to say you had a moment. Like,
Oh, did it go out for real?
yeah,
Yeah.
lagged real quick. Like, oh
Yeah,
snap!
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got that motion. What's up, my blessed people? It's your boy B.Money, and the fellas are back, man. It's been a lot going on since the last time we've been able to put something on wax, but life happens, and we're able to come up a little bit for air, and we want to put some down for y'all, some good content. I think the last time since we shot Secure aired and Laws of Attraction. Secure being a follow up on Insecurish, talking about the things that people are insecure about. But we gave y'all a little bit more content with how to make them feel secure or what it looks like to be secure in this day and age. And then we had our network show, Laws of Attraction. I was unable to be on there, had some, situations going on, but my guy Juicer and B.Bond held it down for a real good show. Go check both of them out. But without further ado, man, before we get in, since it's been a while, man, let's see how everybody doing. B, how you doing, bro?
Man, blessed, highly favored, making money moves. You know what I'm saying? Making journeys. You know what I'm saying? We keep continuing the theme. If y'all watch the other podcasts that I'm on, you know what I'm saying? The G gang, we've been shirtless. So we continuing on with that journey. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, man. Hey, I think hey B man, you looking smaller since our last time we shot, man. What
Just a little svelte, you know what I'm saying? Just a little svelte, that's all. It's just hugging the arms just a little bit, it's light work. This is just light work.
hey man. Hey, glad to see you walking in excellence, taking care of your health.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah.
What's up, Jew man? How you doing?
Hey, man. As usual, I'm blessed and highly favored. I can't complain.
Walking in righteousness.
Yes,
Big
yes. It's
um,
it's crazy. I was out of town for it, but there was a lot of snow in LA. And well, it wasn't a lot of snow in LA, it was a lot of snow in California. There was a little blizzard in LA. I pulled out my phone and tried to get it on Snapchat and it was gone. That's how quick it went by. But it
But didn't they
wasn't.
shut down y'all highways and all that joint for it?
They shut down up a little bit closer to the central area, LA, man. So I got off the plane, I was like moving and grooving. It was raining though. I was a little disappointed because I just got my car detailed. But I mean, that's the only negative thing that happened over the past like month or so. Everything else has been blessed because I am highly favored.
hey,
Tony
man.
Tone said it never rains in Southern
That's what
California.
I was
I
just about to
know.
say. I was like,
Look, that's how we know it's the end of time.
Oh Lord Jesus.
hey man, make sure y'all get right. As they say it's the end of time. It's raining in Southern California.
Yeah, for a whole weekend, not just like a little sprinkle. Like for a whole weekend, I legitimately was just picking weeds a little bit ago because it rained so much, and I ain't trying to pick weeds.
Right, right. You ain't had a real yard in about like the past 7 years, right?
Oh, man, we'll see what Virginia
You don't,
brings.
you don't even know what a lawnmower look like, bro.
I
Right.
know. I sold my lawnmower 2 years ago, and I ain't never looking back. I ain't never doing it again. Hey, don't get it twisted though. To the viewers, your boy can still do what I need to do, but I'm at that point in life. If I don't have to, I'm not going to. There's people for that.
Nah, I feel that. I feel that, bro.
Look, I say that, the fellas are very smart on their budget, and I get to a yard and somebody's going to charge me like $100 to cut it, and I'm like, nope, I'm back out there,
Right. Out there with your straw hat on, your long black socks.
and no shirt on,
Right.
and two
That's
bottles of Zyrtec.
that's the only thing, man. You can't have no shirt on when you cut the grass. You gotta get the neighbors a view.
Right.
The rich white moms.
Right. Housewives.
Give them a look of that beautiful black meat.
Yes, it's a must.
Hey, man. Hey, and most definitely, what I'm saying?
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Hey, man, I would say blessed, and I had a few things happen, but at the end of the day, glad to, hey, man, just be alive, appreciation, just moving in the way that God has for me to move and doing what I can. And man, especially excited today because I get to, chop it up with my fellas, what I'm saying? Intellectual conversation and politic, what I'm saying? How we do it. But man, like I say, without further ado, what I'm saying? We didn't come here just to tell y'all about how we've been doing for the past about 3 weeks. We came in and put some content down. So before we actually get to our show for today, man, y'all know how we do. We're gonna do our WWJD. We got a little bit of, some intel, a question or a scenario from one of our viewers. And I'm gonna set this up for you, Jew, and let's see if you can knock this down in, the given time that we have established, which is
69 seconds.
Whichever way you want to say it.
Look at that. We you see, me and my ship synchronized. Like he said one version, I said the other version, and we ended at the same time.
Because I'm the freakiest five club from the Mac, but that's neither here nor there either. It's light work. It's light work.
Hey man, B.Bond tell you a story about what I'm saying, our shorties once we get off about, the 69 seconds. I'll tell you about it once. Our Julius children are corrupting mine. But said, man, Ju, from one of our viewers, they gave a scenario of asking what would you do in regards to having a family member who every time you are around them, they're disruptive, just it's hard to get along with them, but they're gonna be around all the time because they family. And how would you conduct yourself? How would you interact with that family member? That's enough information.
Yeah, that's enough information.
All right, man. Without further ado, let's get to this in 3, 2, 1.
So, this is something that everybody deals with in real life. And so difficult people, that's like a skill that you just have to develop throughout time, but you still need to approach it with the right mindset and the right love and the right care, especially when you're talking about family. Excuse me. And then, so basically with a family member like that, it's like the uncle at the barbecue that you always hear about. They're either full of life or they're toxic. And then either way, you still showing love to that person because it's a family member. So I'm saying there's no scenario in which I'm going to have a difficult family member. And when I'm around them, I'm not showing them love because that's what I can essentially exhibit. And that's what Christ wants me to do. But when I don't have to be around them, I'm not going to be around them at all because it was where my path is going right now. I can't align with that toxicity and just negative energy. That's not the levels that I'm on. So essentially, I'm gonna show them love when we're around. Other than that, hey, we blood, but that don't mean I got to be rocking with you every single day. That's what you would do.
All right, you get it right at 60 seconds. So I made it in time.
He's a 1 minute man. Dun, 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 dun. No, I'm sorry.
Hey, but made it in time. So, and then without further ado, with that being said, Jude said something in his WWJD about if I don't have to, I'm not going to interact with that person. Furthermore, I would say that means you wouldn't communicate with that person. With that being said, that leads us into the topic of our show tonight, communication. We've talked about a lot of different topics, and a lot of some of the things we talked about is spearheaded by how people communicate with some. We've talked about, Black excellence as being fathers, which we're going to touch on that, how we communicate, or how you interact with children, significant others. We didn't talk about relationships, and we've also talked about brotherhood. So now we're going to touch on the topics of communicating with your children, communicating with your friends, and communicating with your significant other. But first, before we get into that, we need to know what is a good communicator, or how do y'all communicate? B. Jew, what's y'all styles of communication? What factors into it? How y'all look at it?
Uh, I'm very direct. And some may say there's a time and place to be like that. I don't like gray areas. You know what I'm saying? And so, um, what you see is kind of what you get with me. What I'm thinking, is typically what I'm saying. Except for when I'm on this show and I got to throw on different hats and for entertainment purposes only, uh, say say what I need to say. But for the most part, with me, it's hey, what you see is what you get. I can't. I don't taper it. I don't. Try to sugarcoat or anything like that. I just say what's on my mind.
Fair, fair. I'm gonna come back to you, ask you a question, but how you communicate, man? What's your
So it depends. It depends on who I'm talking to. And most of the time, my communication is going to be clear and concise in every single scenario. But what that communication is wrapped in depends on who I'm talking to. I pride myself in having high levels of EQ and being empathetic and being someone that knows how to.
I don't mean to cut you off. What's EQ?
EQ is, so think about your IQ, your intelligence from like your brain power, and EQ is more the emotional intelligence. So based off of my levels of EQ, being able to read the room, read people, and understand how I need to communicate with them to be effective, then I change it based off of the person, which is tough because I mean, like my ship said, he doesn't like beating around the bush. Sometimes based off of how that person's going to receive, I may beat around the bush to kind of just, so to speak, lube up the area before, I hit them with that powwow. But a lot of times at the end of the day, it's going to be clear and concise. And then there's sometimes you just got to be direct. Most of the time, I'm going to be direct regardless, but really just trying to be empathetic and look at people. Because, I mean, if you're trying to lead people to where you want to go, you got to communicate with, taking everybody in consideration. There's not one size fits all.
Most up. And I asked the EQ question, which the reason I asked that is, how often are you aware of your EQ when you communicating with people?
So for me,
and do you?
So you talking about on the reception end, or?
I mean, I guess in just communication as well. When you delivering, how you receiving, and do you believe that's a major factor into being a good communicator?
No, 100% a major factor in the communication, because I mean, you have to be a good listener to be able to communicate anything to anybody. You have to be empathetic. If somebody's like down and out, you're not going to go in and be like, "Hey, you suck today." So there's like a lot of those different pieces of just being able to like migrate and kind of move. I mean that's true. I think there are sometimes like if I go to sports, so I'll work, and that's why it depends because like I have a high performing team at work, so I am very direct with them, but they can receive that. But then I can't be that way with everybody because some people that's just gonna put them in a corner, especially since I'm coming in direct and I'm letting people know what it is. And anytime you're articulate, people already take that as a threat as well too. So sometimes you got to change your communication just to get along and fit along.
So
Not all
B,
the time.
and I feel that B, you said you direct. You gotta give them to how you get. Do you believe that makes you a good communicator? Do you think, like, how you think that factors into styles of communication in all levels of your life, professionally, personally, recreationally?
I think that when people come to me, uh, for one, I consider myself a great listener. So therefore, I would say that when people come to me, they know that they're going to get a straightforward, straight from the hip because I listen. I don't listen to respond, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So if you coming to me, just know you're gonna get some truth in there. And I usually say, well, not some truth, all truth in there. And I usually tell people like, think of it this way: would you rather me lie to you and you find out that truth later, or would you rather me go ahead and just tell you now, and then let's work through it together? You know what I mean? I'm very empathetic. I work in healthcare. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that's natural for me. But also at the same time, I feel like if you're asking me for advice, or if we're communicating in some form or fashion, that to be your friend, your significant other, your father, whatever, I don't want to lie to you. So I think that's me personally. I just think that's a problem in the world. Everybody, tries to maneuver a little bit too much, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Now I feel that. I wanted to ask that question directly because I think everybody has a style in which they communicate. I've touched on this numerous of times through some of my other shows of how important nonverbal communication is. And I think a lot of the times people take certain things as when you communicate is like basically just how you say something. And that's not always the case. I believe taking into like my degree is actually in communication. And it's crazy because I believe most people who have a degree in communication are not the greatest communicators. But with that being said, one thing that of course I love the most about communication is so many different factors. When I'm talking at you, or if you're talking at me, that's trash can to trash can. We just dumping stuff into each other. However, when you really take into communication, you got to take the noise that's over here. And that could be something that was an interaction that you had with somebody, the personality of that person, as you stated, Drew, their EQ, as we also know their IQ, all those facets of so many of those things play into communication. And I think the ability to be a great communicator is understanding that, as you stated, being able to be direct, but being able to massage your message if it's necessary in order to get your message across. Most key thing is make sure you have an understanding of your minds in your communication. If you just say something, but there's no understanding of the minds, even where you agree or disagree, if there's not an understanding of your minds, then I believe that you failed as a communicator, or at least in the message that you're trying to communicate. But again, that also factors into the other party that you're speaking to, because I'm pretty sure both
Absolutely.
of y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say too, you also got to know yourself enough to know. Like I just had one of these conversations with another group, another podcast. Like I much rather me myself, if it's something, my communication style, I'll just walk away from it. You know what I'm saying? Like this might not be something that we need to talk about at this present moment, and I'll exit the conversation because of however I might be perceived at that point in time. So it's just like, I don't want to talk about something. It's not that I don't have an opinion or something like that. It just might not be the right time for us to have that type of conversation. You got to know yourself enough to know sometimes it's good to just be quiet.
Hey, I think that's also a great part of being a communicator, knowing when to speak, when not to speak, and knowing that honestly, I think sometimes when people walk away, we say, well, you don't want to communicate, you don't know how to communicate, and that's not always the case. Understanding that if there can't be a meeting of the minds, or the person is not in the emotional state to receive the message, that also plays a factor in my opinion. This is just my opinion, my educationally, my smart, very truthful, intellectual opinion. If the other person, y'all can't have a meeting of the minds, because just the state that the other person is in, there's no point in having that conversation, because as I stated, there's so many factors that go into it. You could be speaking clear facts and truth to somebody, and now that factors into your other conversation 2 weeks from now, where somebody want to bring something up that was not relevant.
Yeah, that's huge too, because like you talk about walking away, sometimes you do have to walk away even when you are in a clear understanding in the moment, because some people will get emotional and only see red. And then so that's just knowing who you're talking to as well, because some people, there's like some scientific fact out there, I'm not even going to try to quote it right now, that essentially when you get too emotional, you get too angry, you can't actually cognitively understand what is actually happening in the moment. You essentially go like one channel brain. And then so when you try to communicate with people that's in that state, the communication is going to be faulty, like regardless. So that's where you have to even kind of be able to recognize your environment to see how you need to operate in that moment.
All right. So with that being said, man, I think because honestly, man, we could spend this whole show just talking about the different facets of communication and how to dive into different areas. And, maybe we'll build on this later, bring on some people. But as of right now, I want to move into our second, topic of discussion is communicating with children. As has already been highlighted, the IQ, EQ, just a different mindset, and being a parent. All of us, all the fellas, we know we're parents. We know we're fathers. God has blessed us to be able to, shepherd other lives into greatness. So, with that being said, communication is outside of God, in my opinion, one of the biggest factors in communicating with children. And the reason I bring this up, and we're gonna dive into this, is I don't know, have y'all seen that show? It's the Parent Test on Hulu.
Nah.
I mean,
Just
check
the
it out.
commercial.
How you seen the commercial?
Just the
Yeah,
commercials.
I've seen like 4 episodes so far, and it's really, I think one of the biggest things is there's 12 different styles of parenting, and you can just see the way that they interact, but also communicate with their children. So, what I'm gonna start with you, Ju, since we started with B on the last one. What do you feel is an effective way, or what are the factors you take into communicating with your children?
EQ. No, but for real, like being empathetic. And I think a lot of times if people talk to adults like they talk to kids, then they would get along a lot farther. And I say that because you communicate with children in general with love and really breaking things down. Kids, keep it simple. Keeping it simple to them for they really understand, and also being inquisitive to ask questions to see if they understand what you're saying. Kids most of the time aren't going to bark back at you. Sometimes adults will be like, why are you asking me that question? Blah, 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 blah. But like with kids, asking questions, make sure they understand, breaking it down to them, and doing it with love, because they're going to feed off of you and what energy you're bringing them, and also how you talk to them. And you see a lot of these adults, they can't talk to people correctly because their parents didn't talk correctly to them. So love, empathy, real understanding of where they are at that point in time. Because everything I said before, you can't talk to someone when they're seeing red. If your kid's mad, you yelling louder is not the right way to go. And I'm gonna say that in any situation. I was raised in a Black household. Like sometimes you got to walk away then, or just send them to their room, then start back on their tail later.
All right, we're gonna dive a little bit into that. Hey, before we do, B, what you got to lay down, bro?
uh you have to understand that when you're talking to a child, and not just your child but any child, you're molding them at a point. You know what I mean? And what you say, your words matter at that point. Like, kids don't forget anything. You remember when you said this, Dada? Well, 6 months from now, and the same situation come up, Dada, you said that. So you have to go into it with knowing that everything is a learning moment for them. Um, because there's things that they haven't experienced yet. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts as a father that you could have, is that you're molding this young person to be able to communicate with the world at some point. And how you teach them in the household is what they're going to do when they're away from you. You know what I mean? I feel like teaching your child, I mean, the Bible is right. You train up a child in the way that they should go, right?
Right.
And then when you do that, whether it be communication or how they treat people, or how they love, or whatever the case may be, that is a direct reflection of you as a parent.
Fair, fair. I agree with a lot of everything y'all said, but I want to ask like a follow-up question, because in this day and age, man, and I don't want to, let me see, I want to make sure I ask this question the correct way, or at least put this topic out there. We have a lot of friend parents, and there's,
Well, can you define friend parent? Because I think I know what you mean.
yeah, that's what, so like friend parents where it's like they don't want to offend their child. They don't, you know what I'm saying? And it's more so like, for me, even as, or they want to let their child be, I guess let's just say free, for lack of words. We can provide clarity to that exact statement after I explain this if need be. But like, I know back in my day, I didn't cuss around my parents. Even as, I just turned 35, and I still I'll try to slide one every now and then, but I still tread extremely lightly. And some words I never say around my parents. But there's some parents now where, they just open to all of that. It's like, well, I don't want my kid to feel a certain way, or I don't want them to be like this. I think a lot of that is stem from how you interact with your child, stemming from communication. What are y'all thoughts on that?
So
And y'all can, I mean, that's just kind of like
yeah,
a play down. If y'all want to kind of drive it down a different direction
right.
to,
No, I mean, I see where you're going with it, and I think it really comes down to it's tough because it's still knowing your kid, and we can be very direct and be, a hard ass, for lack of better words, and if that's not what's getting through to your kid for whatever reason, because there could be another parent that's not consistent with how you communicate and how you direct, and then that can throw off everything. If the entire society and their environment that you also have them in, or that their school has them in, is a certain way, sometimes it doesn't matter what you say, but you just have to be consistent in whichever path you're going to go. But yeah, for us being a friend thing, I think you can communicate effectively and still kind of, be friendly. But at the same time, I think people do take it for granted where your kids could see you as a peer. But I don't know. I'll stop there because I can go a lot. I can go a lot of different ways with this, but I want to kind of keep it on the communication thing, then more so like a parenting style.
Yeah,
facts.
I want to say too. I mean, I don't want to go down that parenting style tunnel, and I feel like that's where you just try to take us. I ain't gonna lie to you. But I go back to what I said initially with when you're molding that young mind, right? I mean, as a father, I'm also a coach. I coach all different age groups of young men and women, whether it be track or football. And I look at it like this, man. There has to be a level of respect there, um, with how you're communicating to them and how they're communicating back to you. One of the big things, I don't allow my players to cuss. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna cuss you out. You know what I'm saying? You know, but
You
no,
sound like a black parent.
yeah, but well, I'm a little caramel, but I ain't a dark blood or anything like that. I'm playing. Call back to another show. but
Right.
but
Go check it out, yeah.
but no, I think there has to be a level of respect. That friend thing. I think there's a way that you could talk to your child without bringing them down. You know what I'm saying? But you could also be honest. You know what I mean? Like I tell my son now, and I'm not trying to kill dreams or anything like that, but well, not because this is gonna sound bad. Like he loves the NFL, right? He loves the NBA. He watches and he's like, "This is what I want to do." That, and I communicate with him like, "Man, that's great, but what you know what it takes to get there? Like you
Yeah.
gotta go to work. You get what I'm saying? Even at the age of 8, like if that's what you want, you gotta go to work. There's only 32 NFL teams. There's only so many 54 players on the sideline. You know what I mean? To be one of those 54 on those 32 NFL teams, that means you have to be exceptional. What are you willing to do to be exceptional?
Yeah.
That's an honest conversation, right?
Right. And that's the thing is, I think like a lot of the times being rough, because I've always been told like, man, Brandon, you rough on your children. But my thing is this is life. And especially speaking as a black man, it's hard. It's very hard because black men especially, and I'm not trying to go on like a soapbox, so I'll keep this real short, is it's difficult, just even the divorce rate and just fathers not being in a home. I think we get the most heat as far as that. So sometimes you don't want to communicate too harshly to your children, but yet then again, you have to let them prepare them for something. So in that level of communication, I've learned even times that I know my intent might not be to belittle my children. I kind of have to take the step back and be like, wait, did I, belittle my child? Is my child afraid to do certain things because I've spoke to them a certain way that's, that stunted their growth, that stunted that curiosity. However, at the end of the day, that's the one thing, as I know he said it, laughing, but Jew said, as you know, that's that you sound like a black parent. It's like there has always been that separation of like, I'm not one of your little friends. You know, that's the phrase, you know.
As they get the belt, right?
Right. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, with that being said, and correct, you know, but with that being said, I think we all have tried to grow, but I think in our communication or maybe in our actions, you know, you can give a tone to your child. You know, and some people, I hate that, because if you give a tone to your child, some people, oh, you're always so rough. But if you say, hey, stop it, kids, you know, they're just being kids, you know, but you're talking about, hey, then I say stop it. And maybe you might drop a cuss word in there, because maybe this your seventh time telling them to stop. You know, and most people will be like, well, you're not communicating with your child, right? Or you're doing this. Or even on the flip side, when you're doing positive things and you pushing your child, you know, hey, no, I know you just ran five, 200s, but you're going to run this one more. Daddy, I don't want to run this other 200, but you say you want to be in the Olympics. Let's get it. But you know what I'm saying? Well, you're being so rough on it. Be like, no, I'm channeling something and I'm trying to pull something out. But I know it's very key not to belittle your child. But I just think in this day and age, it's just, I don't know. And I don't know how to really articulate it well enough to the point to, say to people that you have to, make that difference of not belittling your child, but also raising your child. And it's a fine line between that.
Well, like I said, you don't want to kill dreams. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not in the realm of being a parent to kill a dream.
Right.
And that's not something I don't think as fathers, anybody, well, at least the three of us would ever do with any one of our children. But at the same time, as we expect excellence from ourselves, we expect that same excellence from our children, but with a little bit more growing pains, because they still got to learn a few things. And we're still continuing to learn. As nobody's born that says, hey, I want to be a dad. Like, it's a continual learning thing. There's no manual on this thing. So you have the conversations with your child, and then maybe when you land in bed at night, you might be like, probably could have handled that one a little differently. But that's growth on our part to go back. And then we could go back to our child and say, hey, told you something yesterday. I don't like how I said that. Let me rephrase that. And that shows them too that we make mistakes.
Right. Yeah, I got some other thoughts on the words honest thrown around. I think we're kids you have to be, but I actually save it for the other segments.
Hey, this will be the last, I'm gonna say this last part, and we're gonna take a quick break here. But with that being said, I think the difference that people need to understand, if you have sternness in your voice and you ask your child, why did they do that? Like, now, was that smart? I don't think that's really tearing your child down or belittling them. Now, if you say, now that was stupid, you just stupid, you're getting into a stage of where you tearing your child down, even if the action is
stupid.
You know what I'm saying? I think, that's where we have to have that EQ to be able to, know how to navigate through that, because sometimes I feel like we choose those choice words out of anger and frustration. And if we're not, balancing that, and we're supposed to be the mature one and use wisdom, if we're not doing that, then we go down the path.
We say that to adults, B. We say that, like, nigga, now that was stupid.
Yeah. I mean,
I got some thoughts on tone too, but it's relevant to other stuff too. So
so with that, then, let's take a quick break. We're gonna hit y'all with a little walking in excellence. We're gonna get back to our last two topics of discussion.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Juicer here, coming to you with another Walking in Excellence. First off, I want to say it's a beautiful Sunday out here, and in the art of being benevolent, for some people that means giving. I'm not going to talk to you about tithes and offering. That's what I do. I'm just going to talk to you about general giving to people. That is something we need to do when you're walking in excellence. Give to the person on the street. Give to the person in need. We don't need to be greedy. Don't spend your money on OnlyFans, TikTok, popping tags. There's so much more to life. Give to someone that needs. Next time you're at Starbucks, pay for the person behind you. Next time you're at the gas station, fill up the person's gas tank behind you. They might need it more than you. God will bless you. And trust. That's what Jew would do. Walking in excellence. It's your boy Juicer. We out.
And we're back, man. Hope y'all got something from that walking in excellence from my man Jew. With that being said, man, let's move on to our next topic discussion: communicating with friends. Everybody use. I mean, we use that title very loosely, friend. So I think when you friends, you should be able to say some things. Now, how you say it? How should you say it? That, I mean, I guess that's it. You know, fellas, how do y'all we brothers, and we've been brothers for what, over 20 years now? Yeah, well,
feel like it. Are we that old?
Yeah, getting close to 20 years. Yeah, it's getting close enough.
I mean, I'll be 38 this year.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in a bond for 17 years.
Yeesh.
Man, wait, hold on, man. Since the last time we recorded. Yeah, we had a Capiversary since then. Happy Capiversary.
Yeah. Happy Capiversary. And I brought my sonny in since the last time.
Hey yo.
Yeah.
Sure, and I had an actual.
But for me, like the question you just said actually goes back to what I said I was going to hold. How you say it, tone. I think regardless, your friends know you more than anybody. They know when you're coming at their head. They should know how you're delivering a message in certain situations. And going back to that tone, me personally, whether it's with children, friends, or coworkers or significant others and all that kind of stuff, I save, like, my tone is big on how I'm talking to someone. And I agree with you on the nonverbals, B. But sometimes I may make a face just because I'm a human being. I'm gonna make a face. My face ain't always how it is, but my tone and what's actually coming out of my mouth is that's important. But if my friends that hear that like disappointed dad voice or like that come on man or something like that, if I'm like disappointed, I usually don't talk as stern like with my friends. It depends on what the conversation is going to be. If we're talking about something like working out and somebody had a bad meal or something like that, I will be like stern in that situation, like, come on, man, you messing with your health or something like that. But everything else, I think it's all understood that I don't really need to talk stern to them or be super like blunt and bold, or I can be direct enough and they know where it's coming from.
Do you always get the results?
No, never. I don't get the results from anybody that I put out there. I'm just no, it depends because of the fact that I mean the thing about a friendship is you're supposed to just guide each other through a lifetime. And most of the time, like I'm gonna mess up, my friends are gonna mess up, and we're gonna lift each other up at different points in time. And using the term, like you said, associates versus friends, like my friends, yes, I am going to operate differently than I will with an associate. And with my friends, we're gonna be around for a long time. They're gonna catch me slipping. Sometimes I'm gonna catch them slipping. So I don't really need to be like their parent. That's what they have parents for. But yeah, I have a different level of standards in a lot of situations. So
hey, before I get to B, man, I'm gonna let y'all know. I know we've been brothers with B for about 20 years plus, but as y'all already know, Joyce is my brother for my full 35, and B noticed in Joyce's style of communication, as I told y'all, Joyce is an instigator. So
I was about to say, Jew on here capping.
Right.
It's all
like,
good.
He ain't gonna say, he won't talk stern to you, but he gonna say some stuff that you're gonna be like, you know what I'm saying? He ain't gonna be like, man, go and put that bonbon down. You know what I'm saying? You got health goals. Joy's gonna be over there and be like, hey man, we just passed McDonald's. You want to go in there and get 3 meals? Because I know you always like eating a whole bunch or eating what you're supposed to be eating. You'd be like, wait, what?
No, I'm not gonna throw it up there. If you said we passed by McDonald's, man, I was looking at it like we were with one of our friends one time late at night, and he kept on looking at it. I was like, "What, you want to go over there and throw off your goals?" I'll say something like that.
Right. But
That's the
For
same.
everybody that's
That's the
listening,
same thing. That's
right,
the
that's
same
passive
thing.
aggressive
but
communication.
I'm not going to tempt them. Yeah. So, and to our viewers out there, it can come off as condescending, but that is the relationships that we have, and not from a condescending being an a-hole type thing. It's just like I'm gonna motivate my folks for the goals that they set. And same thing going back to the kids. That's the last thing I'm gonna say it on is like my kids and my friends and significant other, and there's anybody in my family. I'm only going to talk to you about the stuff that you said that you want to do in life. And I feel like God put me here to make sure I can communicate effectively to get those people to that next level.
That.
Well, I'll jump in at that point. I think communication with friends has changed over the course of time. Niggas got Twitter fingers now, and I think a lot gets lost in context of texts or Twitter or Instagram, any direct messages, whatever you want to do it. A lot gets lost in context, but at the same time, as friends or brothers or whatever the case may be, I I I would impress upon if there's something where I'm lacking, or if there's an area in life where I'm lacking, I would expect one of you to, hey B, we need to talk about something, bro. You XYZ. You know what I'm saying? And it's at that moment where I either decide to accept that communication or deny that communication in the sense of I might fire something else back. You get what I'm saying? And
Right.
so I feel like, Am I My Brother's Keeper? That's y'all's favorite movie, right? You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
Am I My Brother's Keeper? So if we gonna live by that creed, then and if we answer yes to that, typically, then as brothers or friends or whatever the case may be, man, I ain't gonna let you be out here slacking on your macking. You know what I'm saying? And if you're doing that with me and I'm your quote unquote friend, who knows what you're doing to a complete stranger? You know what I'm saying? So I'm a hey, bro, if you're trying to do this, let me show you how to effectively communicate with me as your friend, so you know how to effectively communicate with a business owner or your child or your significant other. You know what I'm saying? Because there's been plenty of times where I'll be like, hey, I called you up, XYZ is going on, and we talking, and he'll be like, now, you're my boy, right? you was dead wrong, bro. And he'd be like, after being hot and heated for a second, you're like, yeah, I was. I'm gonna have to go apologize, huh? Yeah. All right, cool. I could do that.
Hey man, but you just said something, B, and I think that's because sometimes you gotta annoy your friends too. You gotta know when they might still give you some pushback, but they hear you. You know, be like, no, but they did this. Me personally, I value both of my brothers' opinion. So they say if I say something, I'm looking at it a certain way, and they communicate back to me like, nah, B, you was dead wrong. I'm not gonna lie, 9 out of 10 times, I'm gonna kind of like, but nah, man, you know this. Unless it's just that, you know, writing on the wall and I have to just take it on the chin. But it doesn't mean that I don't listen to them. And I think we understand in communicating with your friends, understanding that they pushback might be slightly to save face to somebody that they respect, but of course, if you normally, hopefully you'll see their actions change. And that's a big part, man, that it's very frustrating because it said at the end days, people will become lovers, men will become lovers of themselves. And I feel like we at that stage where being
Yeah, I
a lover
love me
of
some
yourself,
me.
being a lover of yourself, can't nobody say nothing to you.
Yeah, I love me some me, man. You know what I
I mean,
mean?
like, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to definitely not making, I want to use this as an example. And I really do pray for him to, get to where he needs to because he's dope. But Ja Morant, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of the times when people come and say sorry, I don't know what his friends or associates or people may be saying to him, but I'm just going to say that sometimes people in that type of position, when they friends say something to them, they be like, I'm the $230 million guy. You know what I'm saying? If you're talking to somebody, they like, I'm the six figure what?
Hey, why in time I'm waiting on my shirt? She said she made me a shirt, bro.
And they throw their status or they be like, yeah, but I'm doing this. you say something about fitness goals. You know, I say something to my brother Jew about not eating candy or something like that. You know, he'll say something to me about fitness. I say something to him about not eating candy, and he'd be like, "Well, I'm not on the same fitness goal that you're on." This
Well,
is not like
No, it's so you know, I use one example is you know, this morning me and my brother was having a dialogue about something, and I didn't really have to take it on the chin because in that moment I felt like I did almost everything I could do more than the other. But I did give my pushback at one point in time, and I made a comment like it was some stuff that just needed to be handled. And I was like, you know what? Next time I'm LeBron and just do it all myself for it to get done. You know, so that was me kind of giving that pushback, like, man, I did what I can do. I dropped the ball in one area, but other people should have stepped up. However, there were some parts where he said some other stuff, and I legitimately did not respond to give any more excuses or any more reason or any pushback because we understood where each other were coming from. There was something I could have done better, even though I had done a lot, and the message got across. And I shut my mouth, didn't text anything else, and I
you
finished my
listen.
workout. I
You
listened, you
listen.
know. I was like, even if there was not a full story here, because I feel like sometimes some people will give a little pushback. They'd be like, but did you take this in consideration and this consideration before you said it? Most of the time, your friends already have taken, hopefully, all that in consideration, and they're telling you something because they want to tell you something. So you don't need to super explain yourself. And then, so that's why I'm like, nope, it's time to be quiet. I'll take that 10% that he had, and I'm gonna use that 10% to be better.
hey,
Well,
I'm gonna
well,
say this real quick, B. I caught his LeBron statement this morning too. I was I was getting ready to kind of be like, hold on, da da da. But I also did, as he stated, I caught that nothing else was said after one thing that you like, all right, I hear you what you're saying, LeBron, for these other areas. And then so when he's caught that, I said mine, and I made sure that I communicated like, hey, but I'm not gonna push on the issue anymore because I could also pick up the fact that he was like, I gave my pushback, but I also hear what you're saying. And it's not necessary because I feel like that's another thing. Like when friends, you see that and you know that, you get some friends who keep going on. It's like, I'm gonna save that keep going on for our next
yeah. Right. Well, two things, bro. And it's crazy because you brought up John Morant, right? That's
Right.
one of them instances where the friends need to be like, bro, are you stupid or are
Yeah.
you dumb? You
Yeah.
like you the 230 million dude and you doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But when you got stupid friends around you, stupid is that stupid does. Y'all all doing the stupid stuff together. So who gonna police who? But
Yeah.
neither here nor there. And then you said something with what you said with keep going on. I've listen, y'all don't know me for a long time. God has blessed me to grow from some things, bro. Because y'all, if y'all don't know, listen, these last couple episodes, I feel like I ain't had to show my butt, and I'm talking like I got some sense. As Sherry Warren would say, but God has blessed me in the area to know when to walk away for real, because I have a temper,
Yeah.
and just as quick as you could say something to me, I could fire off, and just as quick as I'll take it there and be like, well, y'all have heard that saying, it's on site.
Yeah.
It could be that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no fear in my blood whatsoever. Like you could what's up? But I think God has blessed me to know because there's been sometimes in communication where I'll be like, I say what I say, then they fire back, and I might say a little something else, and then they fire off, and then I'll be like, let's leave it. Let's just leave it because I don't like the way where it's headed.
Yeah.
And so I think that's I pat myself on the back for that joint.
Hey, man, that's walking in excellence.
As a light skinned brother, somebody always feel like because you light skinned that you soft. You get what I'm saying? And I feel like no.
Hey, man, you know what? With that being said, you said knowing when to walk away, which is key, which I'm gonna take that as an opportunity for us to transition to our last topic, last discussion is communicating with your significant other. Again, we only gonna touch on the surface of this, y'all. We're gonna drop some gems. I know it's gonna come. With that being said, man, I think a lot of relationships end because there's three things. There's three things that I think make a significant other relationship work. Number
I done
one is
got
God.
hot. I done got hot talking. Hold on.
Number one is God. You know, if you believe in God and you have faith, I believe He has to be at the center. Number two is communication, and number three is not having sex. But since we're not talking about not having sex or sexual interaction, that's not what we're getting in today. But communication is key because sex might be something you communicate about. But there is so many times where I realize that people in relationships, especially when you say your friend, they don't know when to walk away, or they don't know they don't take the cues from somebody that they should know personally and intimately. What's y'all like? And man, help our people out with communicating with your significant other. What's
Well,
effective? What's some of the failures y'all see, or what's the hot topics?
well, I'll say I'll start it off with this, man. As black men, we all have that adage of the nagging black woman, right? Like we hear that all the time. Like,
Yeah.
why don't she just let me be alone? Here's the thing, bro. Like, maybe she's not nagging. Maybe you're just not hitting the mark in her eyes, right? In her eyes. And you might need to see that and then be like, nah, I'm not hitting the mark in your eyes. You might not be for me because I'm doing the best that I could do. You know what I'm saying? Um, and as I don't want to take it to the black woman. I think we should wait if we have guests on the black woman and how they communicate. But sometimes y'all just need to know when to shut up. That's all I'm gonna say. I got enough going on in my life, and I don't need you over here. That's what. Yeah, I might edit that part out. Probably not though.
No, I mean, but so I don't even think you need to
Let it
edit
go,
it
let
out
it go.
because I'm gonna bring it back around for you, Ship. So B.Bond said earlier there are certain times in a conversation where he knows he just needs to walk away. And so he said that he recognizes that about himself. And in this moment, it's a little bit more candid of saying, like, yeah, you just got to shut up sometimes. So I think it's fair. You've covered all bases here.
But in communicating with it,
Hey, hold on, real quick. B.Bond saying you know when to walk away. That's psychology B.Bond talking. Shut up, it's spicy B.Bond. He's still giving all of them.
yeah. But in communication, I can't necessarily. I'm not the person to give you advice in this area because I'm just saying, me personally, there's things I'm still working on. We've had episodes where we talk about me being vulnerable and things of that nature. That's stuff that I'm working on. I think that all goes into communication, letting somebody know how I'm feeling and what I'm actually thinking instead of feeling like I'm coming at them, but I just might have a lot pent up. You know what I'm saying? So I'm wise enough to say, y'all don't want to hear B-Bond's advice on communicating with a significant other. Yeah.
Hey, well, I'm gonna ask you, but then maybe we'll come back and ask you what are some of those challenges. I mean, you just acknowledged one, being able to be vulnerable, but I think but there's got to be a reason that you.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So
these girls are ruthless out here. These women is ruthless. They take advantage.
Hey, we're gonna make sure we have some guests on. We might have to dive a little bit deeper. And Jude, what's your points? What's some of the areas of you see that's potential failure and things of success in communication with significant other?
A lot of it is, kind of some of the things we hit on earlier with the listening, being empathetic, being concise, clear. And for me, across the board, I'm going to be consistent in all of my communication. You're going to know exactly how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking based off of how I'm communicating. Where I've seen disconnects in communications with significant others or anybody across the board, but you definitely see it in a significant other, which is where the frustration would grow, where that temper is probably ready to spike at any point in time because you're saying that this is the person that should know me the best and see me operate with everyone else. And you would assume that you're operating with more love with that significant other. Is asking questions, one, to understand. And sometimes people can take that as like you're coming at my head, and really being a good listener. So I think that's just one of the big failures. B-Bond said it earlier, listening to understand, not listening to respond. and then also just knowing when to walk away from a conversation. Because if it's somebody you're going to be around for a long time, there's no reason to always communicate the conversations. But I know one thing that I'm big on is I do not like people taking my intention the wrong way. So that's something I'm continuing to work on is I am very clear and concise when I communicate. This is something I work on a daily. I have led hundreds and hundreds of people throughout my life and dealing with a lot of money. I have to be clear and concise. So I'm not going to falter. That's one thing I can say. There's not a lot of things I'm sure about, but I'm very sure I'm not going to falter of the message I'm delivering to someone. And especially when I even think about delivering it at the right time. I'm not going to have certain conversations with somebody if I know they had a bad day. So I'm thinking about all this stuff before somebody else is even taking into consideration. So my temper can kind of flare a little bit. Instead of me giving somebody 5 times to like upset me, it's gonna be like 2 or 3 when I know I've checked all those boxes. But really just kind of circling it back to like just show love when you're talking to people, especially if it's somebody you care about. And hopefully they can feel your intention on your intent on the right side.
I think again, without going too deep into gender roles, personalities, astrology, and all that stuff. You said one thing, Jew, seeking to understand, and B, you said, you don't just listen to respond. I'm pretty confident. I'm probably 99% sure. I know it's in several books, but I think the first time I really read it was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where they mentioned seeking to understand. And that's, I think, is one of the failures in the way that we communicate. Because as you stated, B, maybe she might not be nagging. And a lot of women might not listen to this because they want to say, no, I'm not.
Hey, sorry, bro. I can't. I just want you to put a pin in it real quick because I did mean to address that when he said she may not be nagging, but I did appreciate they said maybe that person's not the one for you because I'm doing everything I can. And that is fair for people to understand that you can't see eye to eye because I mean, everybody ain't meant to be together. And a lot of people continue to butt heads on communication, simple things like communication, because you weren't the one for them. Sorry, go ahead, bro.
No, and highlighting that because that's what I was actually getting ready to touch on is that a lot of the times I think in my experience is that a lot of women speak from feeling, and a lot of men speak, I don't want to use the word logically because then you're gonna hear women be like, "Oh, y'all ain't logical," and all that
Just
stuff.
from
Systematic,
from directness.
Yeah, directness. I think it's a systematic like A, B, C, and they're both needed. And
Logical.
when you seek it to understand, I've grown to learn that, like when I'm speaking to wife, you understand there's some things that it's just like, oh no, this is just straight 1, 2, back, forth. I need this answer for this. But in my experience, there's times I've given like a 10-minute answer on something that was really like a yes or no, because I'm so used to hearing like, well, I don't want to just say no because there is gray, shades of gray in here. But to be honest, the overall action is going to be no. And when you start getting that, you get people to just tune out and be like, you talking all over the place. And then they start attacking you, but they don't realize that, hey, you've been speaking from feelings before. And now I'm trying to make sure I take your feelings into consideration. And people have to even understand that how they communicate and how that factors in. Where, like I say, I'm very systematic in my communication. So when you say something to me, I'm listening and I'm understanding and I know your personality, or I've studied everything, or if I don't have an answer, I'm gonna come straight on and tell you like, I don't know, I don't have experience with that, or that's unfortunate, like, sorry you dealing with that. But then if it's like, if you don't respond, so there's so many different facets in it. But I think that as we seek to understand, you have to understand how the person is communicating. Are they speaking systematically? Are they speaking from their feelings? Are they speaking from somebody else's experience? And taking all of that to factor in, that I realized that between men are from Mars and women are from Venus, that sometimes the button heads, the nagging, is because, or what comes off as nagging, or comes off as maybe a man, as some women say, you talking down to me, or I'm your equal. You ain't gonna talk to me like that. It's like, no, I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm talking to you about something systematically, and I'm just not, crying or doing all this, oh baby, I just don't want you to be. No, it's just like, I'm just telling you straight up. No, this is how we about to move.
So you're saying that women need to exercise more EQ? or just collectively everybody need to exercise more EQ? That's a rhetorical question, but I do have a real question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
B.Money, can you be honest in communication with your significant other?
No, I'm gonna answer that for him. I don't want you to get in trouble. No. No. Why would you do that?
Depending. Again, you got to know your audience, because like if you're in a back and forth conversation where there can be any form of tension, you can definitely not be honest with your significant other. That's just my opinion.
Let me stop you.
Yeah.
You can't say that, B.
What
you
you
can't
mean?
say that. So here's the deal. What do you mean by being honest, Jew? Because I feel like honest would be if you know your significant other is on this weight loss journey. We'll stick with the weight loss, right?
Yeah,
And
that's a good hot topic.
That's a good one, right? You know they on this weight loss journey, but then you see them eating bonbons, cupcakes, 2 Big Macs instead of 1 this time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like an honest conversation would be, I beg, you know you're trying to lose a few pounds. Maybe you shouldn't eat that. You want to know what she's gonna hear? Why are you calling me fat?
That's true. I think from like the generic piece, like a lot of women would take it that way, take heart to it. Kind of going back to what y'all said about me earlier. The way I would approach that situation is I wouldn't say anything to that moment. I would say enjoy your meal. But then later on, when they say, why can't I meet my goals? Then I'm going to be like, well, because remember on January 2nd, 2023, you was going in.
At 11,
that's why you're not reaching your goals.
11:13, 27 seconds. But and that's what I was about to say. I said,
my bad, B. I do want to say, well, like on the honesty thing, real quick to clarify that. So really just honest across the board on almost anything. And I know where you were going with the B.Money. I think it depends on what the conversation is. For me, I think it really is just can that person receive it?
You should be able to be.
Hey, look, I'm just gonna say this. Y'all can. I'm gonna take it on the chin if somebody give me some heat.
I just tried to help you. I said no, but now you want. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, boy, women love it when you being honest about somebody else. Soon as you get to being honest about them, boy, they be like, wait, hold on. We was just talking about why this person is overweight because they ain't taking care of their business and the way they eating and not going to the gym. But now, we just said that yesterday, and you was already like, yeah, I saw them watching TV, eating all this food. But right, now,
and real quick, let's change it from over. Let's talk about financial freedom.
Okay, so, financial freedom.
There we go.
Okay, so hey man, she out here faking, you know what I'm saying? Capping all on things. She couldn't pay her bills last week, you know what I'm saying? But now, I'm coming to you and be like, hey man, do you really need to go buy, this?
Do you want to go on vacation? You got some money for vacation?
Yeah, vacation or something like that. Like, well, you're always doing this, or you always talking to me that way. So I'm saying when you coming at them now, however, again, I agree. You said exactly perfectly, Jew, when you said, now when they ask and they say, because now they're looking for that heart to heart with you. Now they're looking for that coach, and you still got to be smart in the way that you communicate it. You can't just be like, that's because you out here eating all this stuff. You want to be fat, you want to be broke, you know what I'm saying? Spending all your money on this. You still have to say, well, I don't think it's this. I'm just saying you could do this area better. So it's levels to it. It's levels.
Yeah, the biggest thing to me is when you let's say you see somebody that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, Halle Berry. Let's just use Halle Berry, for example, not Maya. Christina Milian.
I was watching Maya in the
house party.
House party. I was watching.
Yeah. She looking good.
She was. I can tell she's getting a little bit older though.
But she's still fine.
She do look good, 41.
And you'd be like, dang, Maya sure is fine. And then they'd be like, no, she not. You can't even be honest with yourself, girl. Stop playing. Stop playing.
Can't be honest with yourself around her. Man, like I said, man, I know we could talk on this one again. all day, diving into different facets. I think one thing I will challenge back, even as far as men, be mindful as whenever you are speaking to your ladies that honestly they do speak a lot of times from their feelings. And it's not to say that what they're saying isn't true. It's just that you have to understand that your style of communicating back to them is you have to address and at least acknowledge their feelings. I've learned that, over my course of time that you can't tell a woman she's wrong. But you do have to, it's like steps to it. You got to acknowledge like 5 things before and then just say, this is why I don't, see it that way or something like that. But you have to speak that way. And that's being mindful. And I think it's a common thing, that statement that's been brought through this entire thing of your EQ, your emotional intelligence. And Jude, that's why I asked at the beginning. Me and my brother had numerous conversations about EQ. He even recommended books to read on it. But I wanted our viewers to understand that it's not just somebody's not smart enough to communicate something, because just in the statement, women are smarter than men. We can communicate better than men, but you don't realize that you might not be effective in your communication because your EQ might not be as high. You may have a higher IQ and maybe than your significant other, but don't mean you have a higher EQ, and that factors in the communication just as much. Before we wrap it up, man, I am going to do excellence realized, very personal one. But before we wrap it up, any save rounds, bro? Any things y'all want to drop out there?
You could tell a woman she wrong, but I wouldn't advise it. That's the advice I give you.
My advice is going to be confident, be honest, be inquisitive, listen, and tell people when they're messing up. Tell them when they're wrong. Communicate the truth to them. And if they don't like it, like B.Bond said earlier, they don't need to be in your life. Or maybe you don't need to be in their life.
Yeah, and be okay with that.
But communication starts with words. I dropped some EQ. One of my favorite books is Emotional Intelligence 2.0, Travis Bradbury, something like that. But yeah, check it out. If you don't actually really know what EQ means, even though we kind of explained it a couple of times, it's something you can work on. Honestly, your IQ is kind of going to be what your IQ is after a certain age. You can make your way around some things, but EQ is something you can work on. And I think the whole world would be a better place if people actually tried to work on crafts and tactics like this, that people give you books and teach you how to do it.
Yeah, because a lot of
you can't tell our audience that they're gonna stay dumb for the rest of their life after a certain age. Come on, bro.
Yeah, we're talking about being concise and honest right now. Look, I feel the audience are our friends, so I'm gonna be honest with them.
Because look, communication starts with your identity. How you see yourself. A lot of times is how you're going to communicate. So if you're aware of how you're feeling and how you're seeing yourself in that moment, when somebody might be saying something to you, I just want to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, what you fellas have already dropped, as I said, gems. But with that being said, man, I'm going to do an excellent realize. One of the main reasons we haven't shot in a while is our grandmother passed away. Me and your grandmother passed away a couple weeks ago. And tonight, she's my excellent realize. I just want to drop that what she poured into us, into our father, who has poured into us. It's she's always had love. She's loved unconditionally, man. And I think, as Ju said, communicating with love is one of the key things that I've always seen her do, and it plays a big part of me. And I understand when Ju said that, hey, he kind of gets a little triggered because we are very intentional in making sure that we, show love. And, I even spread that to my brother B. As many, tough conversations me and him have had, he's also, displayed that. But Grandma, I love you. Thank God, for you being my grandmother and what you brought into this earth and what you instilled in us. You my excellent realize. And until we meet again, in heaven, paradise, I love you.
Gang dynasty. I had to push the liquor off the side for Grandma.
Hey, that's one thing I'm gonna do. Hey, look, man, I listen to my rap, but I might be up and on my John Morant, right around. But when Grandma came around, all that went away. Grandma didn't play that. She loved the Lord. Hey, man, but I'm kick back over to, my main man, B.Bond. Take us on out. let us know
This
what we have
is
coming up.
yeah, this has been another episode of the fellas. Hopefully y'all get Toxic B.Bond back soon. But nah, I feel like we need to educate a little bit that's the season. I had a conversation with one of my friends, one of my brothers, and we talked about seasons of life, man. I feel like there's a season for everything. That's what the word tells us. There's a season to grow, there's a season to prune, there's a season for things to die off, and to come into your life. And we just in a season as the fellas is going to educate. And not saying that we know it all, but y'all see enough of the ignorant black men on your screens. You know what I'm saying? The John Morants of the world. I'm sorry, I'm calling you ignorant, bro. I like you, but you're ignorant.
Yeah.
So let's give it another side of who we are as black men. So we got a lot coming up. Hope we get a little bit more consistent with this recording schedule.